In one of the most explosive trade deadlines in recent MLB history, the 2022 San Diego Padres made a Death Star move by landing both Juan Soto and Josh Bell in the blockbuster to end all blockbusters. While they wouldn't win the World Series like they initially planned, the club reached the championship series thanks to those two guys' help, and Soto would be flipped again to the New York Yankees a couple years later, allowing San Diego to recalibrate their roster with new pitching talent. But this video is not about Juan Soto, and it's not about the San Diego Padres. It's about natitude, baby. Back in 2022, the team that traded away Juan Soto, the Washington Nationals, had officially accepted that their window of contention had closed. After hoisting the World Series trophy in 2019 thanks to the help of a then 20-year-old Juan Soto, the Nationals quickly fell out of competitive baseball in the seasons that followed, culminating in a 107-loss campaign in 2022, which was their worst season since rebranding from the Montreal Expos. The teardown had begun a season prior when they traded Max Scherzer and Trey Turner to the Dodgers, but this move was far bigger. A generational young hitter with over 2 years left of control before he would hit free agency. For a trade like this to be pulled off, the prospect package in return would have to be massive. And 3 years later, it appears as though the Nationals have preserved the future of their franchise by making one of the most controversial moves in baseball history. And today we're going to dissect each part of that package. If you enjoyed today's video, please leave a like on the video and consider subscribing to the channel. I'm trying to reach 200,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I could really use your help, so thanks. The most recognizable name at the time of this trade was shortstop prospect CJ Abrams, who had cracked the Padres' big league roster in 2022. At the time of the trade, Abrams was not only the Padres' #1 prospect, but was also widely considered to be a top 10 prospect in all of baseball by multiple outlets. A former 6th overall pick in the 2019 draft, he was someone that the Padres had protected in numerous high-profile trades prior to the Juan Soto swap. In 2022 at AAA, he hit over 300 in a near 40-game sample with 14 stolen bases. At just 21 years old, he'd get his first taste of MLB action that same year, as I mentioned prior, making him one of the 10 youngest players in baseball at the time. Since then, though, CJ Abrams has developed quite a bit. Abrams has always displayed a capability of making flashy defensive plays while having one of the fastest sprint speeds of any player in baseball. In his second season as a big leaguer, CJ Abrams set the Nationals franchise record with 47 stolen bases in a single season, narrowly edging out Trey Turner's total from 2017. Also, if we go down the list of stolen base records in Nationals history, you'll see at number 6, my fucking dog. I love Nyjer Morgan. What a weird baseball player. I didn't rob this home run, man, fuck my glove. In his third season, CJ Abrams cracked a competitive National League All-Star roster and managed a 20 home run, 30 stolen base season. He became just the 13th shortstop in MLB history to do so, joining a list that includes various MVP winners in Barry Larkin, Alex Rodriguez, and Jimmy Rollins. To that point, CJ Abrams had quickly become one of the most prolific power speed threats in all of baseball, especially considering middle infielders. In the last 2 seasons, he's accrued multiple stolen bases in a game 14 different times, one of 6 players total with that many games doing so. Adding in the power element, he's one of 7 players since the beginning of 2023 to now with over 40 home runs and over 80 stolen bases, a group that includes Shohei Ohtani, Ronald Acuna Jr., and other MVP caliber players around the league. But the biggest thing a lot of people were waiting for, especially Nationals fans, was a more refined approach at the plate, and it seems as though in 2025 we're finally getting that version of CJ Abrams. Of players aged 24 or younger, CJ Abrams holds a top 10 mark in OPS plus across the league, slightly below a teammate of his that we'll get to in just a second. Now, there are long-term adjustments on the horizon for CJ Abrams. He profiles as someone who will likely transition to a different infield position or maybe even the corner outfield long-term, being that he has never graded out well in terms of outs above average. In fact, just last season, CJ Abrams had the worst range factor of any shortstop in baseball. In off-the-field news, the end of his 2024 season was slightly tainted with the news of gambling issues affecting his commitment to the organization, but it seems as though those problems are behind him, and I truly hope things stay that way. While CJ Abrams is certainly an important piece of the future for the Washington Nationals, you can also argue that he's like the 3rd best prospect included in this package, despite him being the headliner at the time of the deal. That's because the Nationals also managed to acquire one of the best outfielders in the game right now and the pitcher with the most strikeouts in baseball. We're talking about left-handed pitcher McKenzie Gore. A fellow top 10 prospect at the time, Gore had also cracked the San Diego roster in 2022 prior to the massive trade. He had made 14 starts to underwhelming numbers, but he was also just 23 years old. A former number 3 overall pick drafted 2 years prior to CJ Abrams, the Nationals kept their new prize southpaw in the minor leagues for the rest of that season upon acquiring him. Unsurprisingly, the abrupt change in scenery, teammates, and personnel was hard on McKenzie Gore. He remarked in interviews that he, quote, struggled with it, and that though he was in a really good place here with DC, the trade was not easy, and it's still not super easy. His dejection certainly was visible in his first full season performance with the Nationals, where Gore sported the worst barrel rate of any pitcher with at least 130 innings at a mark over 12%. However, there were silver linings along the way. Specifically, in a revenge outing against the San Diego Padres in late June, Gore managed to strike out the first 6 batters he faced, setting a franchise record on a day where he punched out 9 overall. In 2024, Gore's pitch arsenal metrics improved ever so slightly as he competed a full season's worth of innings for the first time in his young career. But with the amount of walks and home runs allowed remaining high, it was hard to imagine Gore's ceiling as a big leaguer being much better than a middle of the rotation kind of guy. And that's what has made his 2025 breakout all the more exciting. It all started on opening day when McKenzie Gore racked up a career-high 13 strikeouts against the defending National League East Division champion Philadelphia Phillies, setting a new franchise record for opening day punchouts in the process. He hasn't looked back since that first start, becoming the first pitcher in 2025 to cross the century mark of strikeouts, way before the halfway point of the season at that. And only him, Tarek Skubal, Hunter Brown, and Garrett Crochet have struck out 9 or more batters in a single game at least 5 times already this season. But arguably the biggest thing working against McKenzie Gore is the fact that this is all taking place in the first 2 months of the season, the 2 months that usually go the best for McKenzie Gore throughout his career. He's always been a hot start kind of guy who tails off in a major way in summer, as you can tell by his vast difference in ERA, WHIP, and strikeout totals between the spring and summer months. But this year feels different, with Gore currently striking out more batters than ever and garnering more soft contact than ever. At age 26, McKenzie Gore has entered Cy Young conversations, despite not truly being a frontrunner in my mind. But a teammate of his who has become a clear frontrunner for major award consideration is outfielder James Wood. James Wood is currently putting together one of the best seasons by a position player his age or younger in baseball history. At just 22 years old, James Wood has the best OPS among all outfielders in the National League, better than that of Kyle Tucker and Corbin Carroll. His plate discipline is already amongst the best in the league, with his 13.5 walk rate ranking in the 90th percentile of all players. He has a 900 OPS or better against both right-handed and left-handed pitchers. James Wood is on an incredibly special trajectory, and his age is an indicator that he could get even better than he already is, which is admittedly really damn good, and that's got to be a scary thought for the rest of the league. At the time of the trade, he was just the 5th overall prospect in San Diego's system, but most baseball scouts knew what the potential truly was. Growing up in the Maryland suburbs around the nation's capital, his trade to the Nationals became a homecoming. In Wood's own words, he called it a, quote, blessing that took him by surprise for sure. After winning Minor League Player of the Year honors in 2023, Wood's promotion to the majors in the season that followed made him one of the 3 tallest everyday position players in MLB, alongside O'Neal Cruz and Aaron Judge. James Wood is already a prolific power hitter. He's just not really getting the home runs in the way that you might expect. James Wood's spray chart is a thing of absolute beauty, with an offensive approach akin to a 10-year MLB veteran rather than a sophomore year player. In fact, he has far more extra base hits to the opposite field rather than to his pull side, and he's currently registering the lowest pull rate of any qualified outfielder this season by a 3% margin. He has the 2nd highest opposite field rate, trailing only Victor Scott II. Despite not really leaning into pull power, his barrel rate is the 6th highest in all of baseball, and hey, look at those 2 names at the top. Didn't we just mention them? I feel like we just mentioned them. Unsurprisingly, he owns the hardest hit ball to the opposite field this season at a blistering 110.5 miles per hour.
Good Lord. Are you kidding me?
Oh, no, he didn't.
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, way.
How many other guys in baseball are doing that? Seriously?
Dude. That's 400.
On a string.
Against the traffic.
James Wood is making loud, hard contact all the time. He has some of the best plate discipline in the league despite his age. He's accessing all fields with ease, and oh yeah, he's also one of the faster players in baseball too. He's an immensely talented player, and he's almost fully guaranteed to get better in the years to come. He's one of just 9 players in the last decade of MLB play to slash a 950 OPS or better through the first 2 months of a season at his age or younger. The list of guys here is star star-studded for sure, featuring various MVP winners and also the very man that James Wood was traded for 3 years ago, Juan Soto. Though CJ Abrams and McKenzie Gore were certainly the headliners of this blockbuster 2022 trade, the best player to come from this package will almost certainly be James Wood. But the thing is, the trade return doesn't even end with those first 3 players either. Also included was another former first-round pick and outfielder Robert Hassel III, who was the then number 2 prospect in San Diego's system. He was another consensus top 100 guy, but he struggled to succeed offensively throughout the goings of his professional career. He hit well enough to get called up to the big league roster this year, but he still needs major offensive development at age 23. He ranks higher than the 80th percentile for sprint speed and displays the capability to play all 3 outfield positions, so even if his long-term profile is a 4th outfield bench type player, I still view him as a positive addition to this roster. The final prospect was right-handed pitcher Harleen Susana, another young player who cracked the top 100 list this season. He just reached AA at age 21 and is likely still a couple years away from making a true impact on the big league roster, but with a fastball that tops out in the triple digits and a slider that has reached the high 90s with slick movement, the 6'6" right-hander has a chance to become a devastating weapon in the future if he can hone in his command issues. So it's safe to say that the Juan Soto trade has worked out tremendously for the Washington Nationals, but I don't want this video to be perceived as a jab at the San Diego Padres because they took a swing that they thought could end the World Series drought of their franchise, and I have to respect that. It's a move that a lot of baseball fans would dream of their front office being bold enough to make. And if the Padres had managed to achieve more with Juan Soto, I think the trade would have been viewed very differently around baseball right now. Plus, I think the key player involved in all of this discussion is a player that wasn't even in the trade, and that's Jackson Merrill, basically the only top prospect that San Diego chose to protect, and that decision looks like a really good one right now. He's one of the best players in baseball. Although I can't help but wonder how good would that Padres outfield be if it was Tatis, Merrill, and James Wood right now. On the other side of things though, I'm not letting the Nationals off the hook just yet. The Nationals roster has become young and talented through this trade, but there's still a ton of work that needs to be done. The DC organization has been in the bottom 10 of payroll 3 years running now, coming after a stretch from 2014 to 2021 where they were in the top 10 of payroll 7 of those 8 seasons. If things go south this year, it could be potentially their 5th straight season with 90 losses or more. This trade has also helped mask up their player development failures over the past few seasons. They've had numerous top draft picks turn into busts over the past few seasons. In fact, per Ken Rosenthal's article for The Athletic, the Nationals have drafted and developed only 3 players with a career WAR over 5 since 2013, which is a dozen years ago, all of whom have played their best baseball away from DC. The point of all of this is to say that the pressure is on this front office to start making the right decisions, because this team should be successful right now. They have a ton of positives on their roster, and they also have the number 1 pick in the draft later this year. And we'll know by season's end if a return to contention in DC truly feels any closer. It's a little too tough to say right now. But that'll do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like on it and consider subscribing to my channel. I'd really appreciate it. That'll do it for me though, and I'll see you guys next time.